following episode recounts the details of a real homicide investigation. All information presented is taken from public court records, law enforcement files, and direct investigative experience. The names of victims and individuals involved are used with the utmost respect. No part of this story is intended to exploit or sensationalize their sufferings. As a retired homicide investigator, I believe these stories matter to honor the victims, to understand the truth, and to bring closure to the families left behind. Some content may be disturbing to listeners. Discretion is strongly advised. The Chicken Hawk. This story will make a glass eye cry. Greetings. My name is Harry Gavel. I am a retired homicide detective sergeant first class. I worked in the homicide division in the murder capital of the nation, Camden County, New Jersey. It was 1990. It was a Friday, September the 21st. A 12-year-old boy would go missing from his bedroom. His name was Paul Fitz. He lived with his mother, Sarah, at the JSL Trailer Park, located at Mount Ephraim Avenue and Black Horse Pike in the Fairview section of Camden City. The mother slept on the couch. The 12-year-old slept in the back room, which was tiny, but it was his room. Two homeless men, both alcoholics, were living under a group of trees directly across from Newton Creek, who had noticed something floating in the river. They didn't have any clue as to what it could be, but they knew it was something unusual. So they followed it with their eyes as it floated slowly down this little river. The closer it got to them, the more they realized it looked like a person wrapped in a blanket. So they grabbed some branches and sticks and whatnot and tried to lure this item closer to them so that they could actually see what it was. And it got close enough that it shocked the bejesus out of these guys. When they saw the police car, they went to the police car and asked neighbors in the area where the officers were that belonged to that police car. When they were told that they were inside speaking to Mrs. Fitz, they knocked on the door and reported their grisly find to the two uniformed officers. And they find this 12-year-old boy dead in the river. So they call in rescue, get a couple of small boats in there, and they bring the kid over to the side of the river, and they immediately see that his head had been crushed, terribly crushed. That's the first injury that they see. The child is nude. They can visually see that this child's rectum is unbelievably torn. They leave everything as it is. They call the homicide division. I respond out to the trailer park. Now what I got is a dead 12-year-old kid who appears to have been murdered. It was terrible. It was like a side-to-side crush. His head was compacted to almost look like it was a plate or a platter instead of a head. Horrible scene. And I also noticed that the child's rectum was in fact terribly, terribly abused. It was cracked around the opening of his anal canal. You could see that he had been traumatized terribly. Well, of course, we called the coroner. We had the ambulance come. And I noticed as I'm standing there by the side of this river that this blanket that the child was covered in, I wanted to make sure that that didn't get away. I wanted to keep that as evidence. And as I looked at the child closer, I could see on his body these small white hairs, single white hairs, but a bunch of them on the body of the child. And as I looked at this blanket, the blanket also had these little tiny white hairs on it. But now I had a dilemma. Charlie Kernan, who happened to be the diener for Camden County working at the morgue, the first thing he would do when a body came into the morgue is he'd grab the hose and wash the body down. So I put a call in and said, listen, make sure that Charlie doesn't wash this body. It's got hairs on it that I want collected by the crime lab. I'm on the way to the autopsy, so don't do nothing until I get there. It's very important to me to attend each and every autopsy because the dead do speak. If you learn how to read a dead body, you'll hear who, what, when, where, why, and how they were killed once you get good enough. My call falls on deaf ears. There were a few other detectives on the scene to assist with canvassing. I didn't understand why I had to stay there and be part of the canvassing when I thought it more important to head to the Camden County morgue to collect the hairs that I had noticed on the body that I thought might have a great importance further along in this investigation. My captain, he tells me, "Don't go to the morgue, stay here and canvass the neighborhood." I said, "Cap, I got to go to the autopsy. I have to attend the autopsy. You know, it's part of my investigation." "Gavel, that's an order. Stay here, hit the payment, and canvass the goddamn trailers." Well, now he's pissed at me. I'm trying to do my friggin' job, and he's pissed at me. So I'm pissed at him. In my mind, I'm gritting my teeth and saying, "This mother..." Right? I am fit to be tied, basically, because I know I didn't get the call through to the morgue, and I know what's going to happen to my evidence. I just know it. I've been around long enough to know. Well, sure enough, I find out later that Charlie washed all the body off and all the hairs are gone. But I still have the blanket, which has these same hairs on it. And in my report, my initial sudden death report, you better believe that I noted it, that I had observed these same white hairs that's on this blanket on the body when it was recovered at the river's bank. I knew it. I had to put it in my report. At least I had that observation coming from a county homicide detective. It would have weight if I ever needed it. I didn't even know if I ever would need it, but I know I needed to be observant and note it. I knew that much. That was part of the job. Well, we do the canvass. Basically, no information is gleaned from the canvass. I didn't know exactly what the autopsy was going to reveal yet because I wasn't at the autopsy and I didn't know what the medical examiner's findings would be. I was informed that the autopsy had been moved and would be held on the next morning, on Sunday the 23rd at 9 a.m. I was relieved. Attending an autopsy was paramount in my book as a homicide detective. I knew that much could be learned from attending the autopsy of the deceased. I spoke to the mother and asked her about her life, the life with her and her child. She told me that he was a very good boy. He was a Catholic school student. He listened to her. She can't understand how he got out of his bedroom. She was sleeping there on a couch. If he had walked past her at any time during the night, since she was a very light sleeper, it would have awakened her. She would have seen him trying to sneak out of the trailer. Well, when I went to the bedroom, his window was broken. She hadn't noticed it yet. All she noticed was his bed was made up as if he was still sleeping in it. The window was broken out as opposed to being broken in. Thank God to this day. That would have changed the dynamic for me big time. Why? If it was broken in, it would suggest more that he had been taken from his own bedroom. Since it was broken out, my initial thought, investigatively was at least, that he or someone else broke the window out. The thing that puzzled me about that was he could have easily opened the window without breaking it and leaving out of the window. If he's trying to sneak out of the house without being heard or detected by his mother, why didn't he just simply open the window and climb out? That bothered me for a while. I pondered it many, many days. We scoured the grounds below the window looking for anything. Fingerprints, a dropped identification, a credit card. Don't laugh. People leave their identification at crime scenes accidentally most of the time, but they do it. It happens. Well, there's nothing. There's no footprints. There's no sign of any scrapes or scuffles on the side of the trailer leading down from the window. It's just a blank scene. All that's there is the bedroom window glass that had broken and fallen to the ground. We scour that. We have it collected. We have it dusted for fingerprints. We take it into the crime lab. Nothing's found. This case is a complete mystery, but that's what I love. I'm good at mysteries. I'm a homicide detective, and I take it very seriously. If someone's trying to cover their tracks, I'm trying to uncover that same track. And I'm fairly good at it because I solved 98% of the homicides that I worked on over an 11-year period. I'm no neophyte talking about this. I was actually there. I was actually in the trenches. The next day is going to be the autopsy of the now completely washed and cleaned up 12-year-old boy. You can bet I'm there before the doctor even gets to his office. I'm waiting for him. The autopsy commences. He does the usual Y-section. He removes all the organs. He weighs them, dissects them. He examines the child's rectum, and pictures are taken of every injury, including the head-crushing blow that he sustained. I have the pictures still at home in a file. I'll keep them with me till the day I die. It was personal in that sense. I was a father, and it just hit home that I'm working on a savage murder of a child. I know I have to be careful, I have to be diligent, and I have to be smart about it. A sexual predator got a hold of this kid, but I still don't know how he escaped his bedroom, whether he was kidnapped, whether he was lured, but I was soon to find out. And I was going to find out in one of the most impossible ways that you could possibly think of. There was a fella in Camden by the name of Harry Hainsworth. He was a good friend of my father. He was a tough hombre. He lived on our street. I lived at 1267 Shatter Street in Camden. Harry lived right on the same block up the street. My father had built a bar. He and I used to go up to the Camden Bible Factory, which was only a couple of blocks away from our house. There, the Bibles would be delivered on pallets. The pallets comprised of oak wood and knotty pine. We would bring those pallets home every time they were discarded and put out for trash. We would take them apart, use the boards, panel the walls in the basement. My father made a small bar. He had a dartboard down there. He had a pool table down there, which converted into a ping pong table. He couldn't afford to really go out to bars, so he made a bar at home. All of his cronies would come over and shoot pool and drink beers on the weekend, party and laugh, while my mother was upstairs, taking care of 9 children the best she could. We had a pool table in our basement, and several of his friends in the neighborhood would come and gather and shoot pool in the basement. That's where I learned to play pool. Now, don't ask me, I suck at it, but that's where I learned to play pool. My father was a pool sharp. He knew his shit with a pool table. Well, Harry would come quite frequently. They'd drink some beers down in the basement, play pool, shoot the shit, whatever. He was a tough guy, as I said. Well, one night, George Galati, big Italian guy, lived up the street, had a beautiful blonde wife, Wendy. Oh my God, she was gorgeous. Now, I was a young guy at the time, but she was gorgeous, no doubt about it. George accuses Harry of messing with his wife. Shocks me because Harry's wife was one fine filly, his words. He would always say, "Boy, my lady, she is one fine filly, man." He was a regular city street guy, real down-to-earth, meat and potatoes guy. Well, him and George are arguing over the fact that he thinks Harry is messing with his wife. Harry says, "Let's take it outside," which shocked me again. Why? Harry Hainsworth, his nickname was the Bull, and they didn't name him the Bull for nothing. Harry was a street fighter. He was somebody you didn't want to mess with. But George Galati was 1.5 feet taller than him, a chiseled figure with muscles, chest, large arms, large calves. I mean, George was a bull and a badass to boot. Well, they take it outside. All the kids, my father, we all piled outside on the porch. And let me tell you something. I had a front row seat to the best fist fight I ever saw in my entire life. And I'd pay to see that fight again, right now. I mean, these guys were knocking each other over top of the car hoods, took their shirts off. Their faces took such a punishment, nose bleeding, mouth bleeding, ears bleeding. I mean, these guys were throwing haymakers at each other, man. I don't know how it didn't end quicker than it did, but they fought like two warriors. Unbelievable. Well, at the end, they get up, they shake hands and hug each other, go back down to the basement. My father's got his arms around both of them, cracks them both open another beer. They're toasting beers, happy, and best friends all over again. The fight was over. Well, guess what, folks? If that happened today, you mess with somebody's wife like that, it's not a fist fight. It's not a fair one. Somebody's going to get shot and killed. And I've been there on many of those too in my career. So I know. Today, they don't fist fight. They'll shoot you, period. And the younger they are, beware. They'll kill you even quicker. Why? Because they don't think of consequences. It's 1995 now. Harry Hainsworth had become a wino by now. I would see him here and there on the street. I'd throw him a buck or two now and then, only because I knew him. He was a friend of the family. He lived out in the woods himself. He had no home anymore. He's been divorced many years. Wife left him. Talking to him one day, he said, "Hut, I lost my brawn." Meaning he got skinny, his muscles left him. He was not the same man he used to be. And let me tell you, he used to be one hell of a brawler. He had a relative who worked in the Camden Police Department by the same name. I never knew his first name. But anyway, I liked Harry, and Harry liked my family. Well, by now, he's hanging out in the woods behind the liquor store, very close proximity to this trailer park. Now, I, as a seasoned homicide detective, know the street people get the word way before you do, as a cop. They know what's going on. So I pulled down to the liquor store where they would sometimes be waiting for patrons to come and visit the liquor store and bum money from them so that they could get enough money to buy their half a pint of Sneaky Pete, Tiger Rose, or whatever it was, wine. Well, I pull up and Harry's there. He sees me pulling up. He knows I'm a detective in the city. He comes over to the car. "Hey, Hut," with his arm up. My father called everybody Hut because Harry Hainsworth started it. He nicknamed my father Hut many years ago. And we, all 9 kids, were Hut 1, Hut 2, Hut 3, all the way down the line. So he runs over. "Hey, Hut," with his arm up. I'm thinking, yeah, he wants to put a bite on me for a few bucks. Oh, no, you're wrong. What I was thinking is, I'm going to ask him if he knows anything about this young boy that we found a couple 100 yards away from here floating in a river. I mean, it's only been a couple of days, but I'm hitting the street. I'm asking people questions. "Hey, Hut, get in the car," I shouted. Well, that was a mistake. He stunk like a friggin' mountain goat. It smelled like a cocktail of piss and cheap booze that had been stirred and mixed with a shit stick. So listen, had a 12-year-old kid the other day who lived in a trailer park over here. We found him dead, pretty battered up, but he was definitely sexually assaulted. Have you heard anything? Or any of the boys you're hanging with there, have they heard anything? He said, "Jesus Christ, Hut, come on, let's go, right now. I know where this MFer lives. He's a effing chicken hawk. He's always messing with young kids, and he lives in a trailer park. Come on, I'll show you." I can't believe what I'm hearing. I'm like, what? On one hand, I'm thinking, is he trying to hustle me for a couple bucks to get some wine? Because I'm a city guy myself. But no, the way he's saying it, the emotion he's showing me right then and there, I'm believing him. So we drive. We go over to the trailer park. Takes us about 3 minutes to get there. Not even. We're right there. He points to this particular trailer. I take out my notepad, write down the address of it. He lived at lot number 5, row number 13, and trailer number 26. I draw a quick little map as to where it is because there's like 100 maybe trailers in this place. And I beat feet out of there. My mission is throw Harry a $20 bill, thank him for what he did, and I'm heading to the prosecutor's office. I need a camera, and I need to call the records department to find out who lives in this particular trailer. I don't have a name yet. Fast forward, I get the name. It's Frederick Ritchie. Once I had his name from the main office, I checked with the Division of Motor Vehicles. They supplied me his date of birth. Once I got his date of birth, I ran his name and date of birth through the NCIC, National Crime Information Center, located in Washington, D.C. That's a huge criminal database. In moments, they came back that the person that I had ran had a criminal record dating back to 1977. And guess what? In that record, there were included that he was involved and charged with sex assaults. I was in business. I was focused on him. The sooner I had his photograph, the better in my book. I do some digging, because now I need a picture of him. Nothing in the files in Camden County police records, so there's no photo. Well, now I get the idea. I'm going to go to the management office of the trailer park. I already had spoken to them earlier about this death. They had no information to offer. My plan this time was to get a list of all the people that lived in the trailer park. I was doing that basically as a ruse because I wanted to feel out this manager and try to see if they would be a cooperating witness or are they going to be somebody that's going to hinder our investigation. You have to be very careful when you talk to people, especially in the city. If they know that somebody is in trouble or could be in trouble, generally speaking, they'll lie to you. Even if they don't know the person, they'll lie to you. Because ratting in the city, that could be a death sentence. It's definitely stitches. Snitches get stitches, true fact. And everybody in the city knows that. So that's what you're working with. Just a fact of life. My goal is I need a picture of this guy. So I started asking questions. So how does this place run? That type of thing. Who does what? Who takes care of the garbage? Or do you have like a security force? Well, no. But they do tell me, they volunteer the information that Fred Ritchie is their designated property manager in return for free rent. Bingo. You have a picture? Well, no, we don't have a picture of him or anything, but he's our manager. Okay, and anybody else in here? Like, does he have a helper? I'm asking like 50,000 questions to divert my original question. I don't want them to know that I'm focusing on him. So far, they brought up the name, and I love that. I didn't have to go there. So I leave. Now I'm going to pull up and talk to Fred Ritchie at his trailer. Since he's the property manager, perfectly normal. I pull up. As I pull up, Ritchie's coming out of his trailer. He sees me there in my detective car. So I wave. Hey, Fred. He don't know me, but he's looking at me like, do I know this guy? I say, hey, listen, I was just down the management office here, and I found out you're the property manager here for the trailer. Oh, yeah. So I said, can we come in and talk a little bit? Oh, yeah, sure. He invites me into his trailer. Now, according to what Harry Hainsworth told me, I could be very well speaking to the murderer here. So how do I handle this guy? He's not the murderer in my mind 100%. This is just something that a hobo told me. I don't know if it's true or not. So I got to walk on eggs a little bit. So as I'm sitting there talking to him, I'm trying to make like sort of a bond with the guy. I notice he's got a little white dog running around. Dog comes up to me, I'm petting it. I'm sitting on a couch like I am now with a clipboard in my hand. I'm thinking, oh shit, this dog has little white hairs. So now I try to get a hair off of this dog to surreptitiously put it in my clipboard, and I managed to do it, but only a very couple of little tiny hairs that I can get. I went up under the collar and I sort of pinched my fingers together and pulled a couple off and then hid them under my palm. Dog hairs. Have them examined to see if they compare to the hairs I found on the white blanket, which was wrapped around that poor child. It was a pretty shrewd move. I could say so myself, but it's good enough. I didn't think that at all when I first saw this dog. When I pet the dog, it comes to me, oh shit, this guy has been targeted by my guy as possibly the killer, white dog. So hey. During the field interview, Ritchie admitted that he knew my victim, Paul. He stated that Paul had played with his son in the past, but he did not recall ever being inside of his trailer. This was good, but it wasn't the best. Why? Because I needed to lock him in as to whether or not Paul was ever in his trailer. That would be important down the road, especially if he said Paul was never in his trailer and he was sure of it, and we later found evidence, fingerprint, a hair follicle, anything, that Paul had been in his trailer. it would be a big piece of evidence for the prosecution. So I tried to lock him in on that. Well, try to recall that. Was Paul ever in your house? Did he ever sleep over here with your son? Think about it. How about if we ask your son? See if your son remembers it. I wanted to nail that down. I really didn't get very far with that line of questioning. He would just remain skeptical and repeat that he did not or could not recall. So I said, listen, as property manager of this trailer complex, I said, we have to talk to people that live here because this child was found here on this property. I said, I'm going to be asking people to talk to me about what they know, and to eliminate them, there are certain procedures that I may have to ask of them that is police protocol. But what I'd like to do first is ask you if I can have permission, your permission, to search your trailer. A consent permission. I don't want to get a search warrant, but would you give permission to search your trailer? You told me you don't know anything about what happened to this child, so I just want to be able to say in my report that I met you, I cleared you in my mind, I came to your place, you voluntarily let me search, everything's cool. He goes, yeah, no problem. I'll give you consent to search. I'm shocked that he did that. I myself, I don't call in any crime lab or anything. I myself do a visual inspection of what I could see in this trailer. I don't see anything of evidential value, but I do know two things. One, the walls look like they were recently wiped down. I could see smudges, large smudges and smears on some of the walls that looked to me as if they were freshly wiped down. The second thing I know is I'm going to get the crime lab down here to search this trailer if I get any more hint of probable cause to do so. Because to conduct a search, you need fresh probable cause. And at this point, I don't have any, but I'm determined to try and get it. So I leave and I set up surveillance on his trailer by myself, day and night. At day, he's in the main office doing certain things. I pop in on him. Hey, Fred, how you doing? Just stand there and bullshit with him a minute. Sort of letting him know, I see you as the manager here, and maybe you could help me with this case a little bit. I'm not making him suspicious of me at all, but I am trying to build his confidence in trusting me enough that I could come around and it wouldn't bother him. He would figure in his mind, I'm clear. He has no idea I'm involved in anything. Luckily, I get a picture of him with my little Instamatic camera that the office had at that time. But hey, it worked. I get a picture of him, I take it down to the crime lab, they blow it up for me. What the hell good did that do me? I still don't have a confession. That's a very frustrating next couple of days. I'm at a standstill, but I have a target in my sights. So I go home for the weekend. I come back on Monday morning. I'm fresh. I'm ready to get innovative now. While I'm having my morning coffee, one of the guys in the squad comes up to me and says, Yo, Harry, you know that dude you're looking at down at the trailer park? I said, yeah. Few people knew about this. It was still pretty much kept to myself and a couple key people in the homicide unit. He goes, well, this weekend, Wilson was called out from the child abuse unit. She got a call that a young boy got severely injured while at his trailer and is now in the hospital having surgery done on him. I said, what? I jackknifed out of my chair. Trust me. Choom, I shoot down to Cooper Hospital. Find out the doctors who's working on this case and so forth. And I find out that this child had a severe injury to his rectum. And speaking with the doctors that were attending and treating young Johnny P., they advised me that they did receive the initial report that the child had supposedly fallen on a hose rack, and that's what injured his rectum. The doctor told me that he believed that that was a complete fairy tale. As to where the injury was located deep inside the anal canal of this child, that hose rack would have had to have been inserted in his rectum. And the story was he was staying over at this trailer in the trailer park with the guy's young son who lives there. They had planned a couple of weeks before for this boy to come and stay overnight on this night. Otherwise, if it wasn't already planned, I don't think Ritchie would have had any young child come to his trailer that night because in his mind he had to figure, the cops are already here talking to me. I got to watch what the hell I do here. But the child went, stayed overnight. Ritchie would use his young son, around the same age, 11, 12 years old, to lure his friends to the trailer to have sleepovers. His son would go to sleep. Ritchie would feed them vodka on the couch, show them porno magazines, get them loaded up on juice, take them into his bedroom, and have his vicious way with them. That was his M.O. Well, this child, Johnny Payne's rectum injuries were beyond the scope of normal medical belief in my world. What I found out had happened to him, a large part of his small intestine had been severed off. That's all I knew. The story from Wilson is, Ritchie wasn't home when we first went there. The report from him was that this child was there on a sleepover. He had injured himself on an outside hose rack that was hanging on the side of the trailer. And man, I was on it. I was on it like a mustard plaster. So now I'm going to go to Ritchie, because we have a second child now injured at his trailer. I bring him into the homicide unit, the prosecutor's office. He voluntarily agrees to go with me. I didn't kidnap him. We get there, and I start interviewing him about what happened to Johnny Payne, because he got hurt on your property, on your watch, Fred. These doctors are saying they need to save his life, but to save his life, they need information. They need to know how his intestine got hurt. This boy's in the hospital bleeding to death. You have to tell him what happened. Listen to this, Fred. Pay attention to me now. Think of the lawsuits down the road. If this child dies, your life is over, because these parents are going to sue you until the cows come home. The prosecutor's office is going to prosecute you. What are you going to prosecute you for? Neglect of a child. That child was in your care. I'm giving him the whole 9 yards. I'm hitting him. I'm giving him left hooks. I'm giving him haymakers. Just like that Hainsworth and Galati fight on Old Shatter Street. I'm nailing this guy the best I can, because I got him now. I've given him his rights. He's fair game. And he says to me, okay, I'll tell you what happened. Tell me. It's important. We got to save this kid's life. You know, we have things that happen to us in life. But the next day we get up and we do the very best we can. Let's help this child, Fred. He said, well, his rectum was bleeding. Ritchie admitted that he would have the child drink vodka and orange juice cocktail that he made for him while sitting on the couch showing him porno magazines. Once he felt that young Johnny P. was woozy enough, he performed fellatio on him and then had anal sex with him. I'm certain he used dildos on him as well. But the horrific part, if that wasn't horrific enough, he further explains on how young Johnny received his horrible injury. He got a coat hanger from his closet. He opened it up, straightened it out, and made a hook on the end of it. He then inserted that coat hanger in the rectum of this young child, and when he pulled it out, a portion of the child's intestine came out with it. What does he do next? Much to my horror, and I'm a seasoned hard-boiled homicide detective, he gets a pair of scissors from the drawer in the kitchen and cuts the small intestine off and flushes it down the toilet. Well, after he's seen the condition of Johnny P. at that time, bleeding more, unconscious, lying on the bed, he decided that he would call an ambulance for him. Yeah, call an ambulance for him. He's so lucky that child didn't die right then and there. I say to him, all right now, Fred, tell me what happened to any other kids that you may have been involved in. He says, well, I'll tell you what. You come and get me tomorrow. Take me to McDonald's. Get me out of the jail. And I'll tell you what happened to Fitz. I said, but you did kill him, right? Yeah, he said, but that's all I want to say right now. I got zero sleep, of course, because now this is on my mind like a video recorder that you can't shut off. I'm a hot-to-trot homicide detective about to break a murder case wide open of a 12-year-old child, weighing heavily on my mind. So I'm there bright and early the next morning. Ritchie's ready. I pick him up in the Sallyport, take him in my detective car. and I drive down to the local McDonald's right in downtown Camden there. Got myself a large coffee, him a coffee, and a Happy Meal. Can't wait for him to finish this Happy Meal. Let's talk about Fitz now. What happened? He tells me the story. He goes, okay, we had this plan between my son and, I'm going to call him Fitz, to come to my trailer on this particular night. But his mother wouldn't allow him to do sleepovers. So he had to sneak out of the house. Well, he broke his window, got out of his back bedroom window. I told him to put something in his bed to make it look like he was still sleeping there, because if his mom peeked into his room, she'd see that he was in bed sleeping, and she'd never know he was here. I said that basically to assure him, look, you're not going to get caught. Just do this. So the kid did. The kid goes over on this sleepover with the promise of they're going to watch movies with his son, and they're going to have a great time. And it's only a couple doors away. So the kid does it. When he got here, everything was good. My son finally went to sleep. When he went to sleep, he said I was on the couch with him. Now, believe me, to get this monster to tell me this story took a lot of work, took a lot of finesse, took a lot of good detective work. They just don't confess that they hurt or killed someone because they like you. They tell it because they believe you got him in a cage. There's no other way for them to go. And he tells me, I got him pretty drunk with vodka, made vodka and orange juice. We were looking at some porn magazines. And when I saw he was like, woozy enough, I took him in my bedroom. First, I used some dildos on him. And then I had anal sex with him. And I had, before that, I had, performed, fellatio on him. Well, now, believe me, as a father, as a parent, you want to leap out of your chair and just strangle the life out of this son of a bitch. You want to do that, but you don't, because you're a professional. You have control. You're in charge of now this man's destiny. You're the guy that's going to make sure justice is served the correct, proper way. If you screw up right there in that interrogation or interview and the case gets thrown out, it's your fault. And believe me, your peers will make you pay for it. It's not going to go down very good for you if they find out that you blew a case. So I'm cool. I handle it. I handled it many, many, many times, over and over again. But this one was hitting home a little bit. So the kid's drunk. He wraps him up in his dog's blanket. The white hairs from the dog wraps him in the dog's blanket. I'm happy. I'm loving that. Because I know I got the blanket and I got the hairs. He carries him in the middle of the night down to the river's edge. There's a small patch of little wooded section, but not big trees like you're thinking when I say woods. Grassy, swampy areas. He has to go over a small, dilapidated fence. It's about 3 feet tall. He has to climb over that. As he gets him down to the river's edge, there happens to be a large tree there. This monster is wearing combat boots. The kid's head is placed on a root at the base of this tree. He's not dead yet, but he's going to be dead in a nanosecond, because he lifts up his right leg and with crushing force crushes the kid's head against this branch at the base of this tree. He's satisfied now he's dead because he heard his head crunch. He then threw him into the river like a piece of garbage and slid away in the middle of the night like a snake going back to his hole. I got it now, but now I got to take him back to the prosecutor's office and get a formal tape-recorded statement. At the office, I advise him of his rights again and take the statement just to be safe and be sure that he was, in fact, advised of his constitutional rights, and he waived them in writing. We get the statement. I go back at some point to see Harry and throw him another $20 bill and tell him that I was able to break that case. Thank God for his help. Maybe 6 months to a year later, Harry Hainsworth, not being the man that he used to be now, he's down on the balls of his ass as a wino. He comes in possession of a .38 caliber handgun. And now he's walking around the city streets with this loaded handgun, comes across a young black drug dealer in the city, tells him about this gun. The kid says, yeah, how much you want for it? He goes, $20. Yeah, let me see it. Is it loaded? Yeah, it's loaded. Be careful. He hands him a loaded .38 caliber handgun to a drug dealer who promptly aims it at Harry and shoots him right through the heart and kills him. Oh yeah, I solved Harry Hainsworth's murder as well, not long after that. No witnesses, no nothing to work on, but I got the guy that did it. And in the end, the guy that helped me, who became a wino, actually did some good with his life before he left this world. One of the things I try to do as a homicide detective is talk to some of the people I arrest for some of the crimes that they commit, because I want to learn why they did what they did, especially in sex-related crimes. And this was a bad one, 2 bad ones to be exact. So I made arrangements to pull Ritchie out of the Camden County Jail again and interview him, first of all, about any other murders that he may have been involved in, or child abductions or whatever. I wanted to make sure I cleared out his inventory of bad things that he has done to children, because I know if he did 2, and he's a man in his 30s, almost 40s or whatever now, he's done more than 2. That was my mindset. Sure enough, he tells me there was another boy in another state. That state was the state of Oklahoma, who was at the edge of a pond at a fishing hole. He was hiding in the weeds, completely concealed, because he knew young kids came down to this fishing hole to fish. When he was sure that there was no one around watching him, he leaps out of the bushes like an animal and attacks this young boy, drags him into the underbrush, strips him, holding his mouth shut so he can't scream, sexually assaults him, leaves him for dead by beating him up, and takes off. Luckily, the child lived. I got the details from him from that case, the 5 whores and a hobo, the who, what, where, when, why, and how. And I was able to contact that police department. I ran the situation past them. They immediately recalled that they had an open case where this boy was sexually attacked, but it was unsolved. They signed charges against Ritchie, and somewhere down the road, he was adjudicated for that. But at the same interview, I want to find out why Ritchie does what he does. So I say to him, I'm his buddy now. Listen, let's talk. Tell me why you did these things to these kids. I want to know. Help me with solving future cases that I come across like this. I want to pick your brain. He's loving it. He says to me, well, Harry, first let me tell you this, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for taking a monster off the street. Because if you would have not caught me, I know I would kill again. And we are looking each other dead in the eyes, brother. And he's serious as a heart attack. And I felt in my own heart of hearts. I didn't say it, but I felt it. You're right, you son of a bitch. I did. I took a monster off the street. But you know what? Doing a good job in homicide is like pissing your pants in a dark suit. You get a warm feeling, but nobody notices. It's just another day in the life of a homicide detective. So I asked Fred, why? Why do you do what you do? He said, well, he made me a faggot. Those were his first words, quote unquote. He made me a faggot. I said, what do you mean, Fred? He said, well, this is hard to talk about, but I want to get it off my chest. I said, I'm here, buddy. At that point, I moved my chair in closer. I'm all ears, put my hand up on his shoulder. And he says, I lived alone with my father back when I was growing up in East Camden. He said, every day I used to dread walking home from school. I would drag my feet because I knew what waited me in the house. my father was waiting me. He was a big, hairy guy. He had hair all over his chest, his back, his arms. He said when I would get home from school, he'd take me down to the basement to a brown couch. There, he'd strip me. He'd have his way with me every which way you could think about. He said, my father forced me to perform fellatio on him, and then he did the same thing to me. I couldn't stand it, but eventually, I guess I became to believe that's who I was. I had a very low self-esteem. I had very little friends. I couldn't even really make a friend because that was always on my mind. It somehow would come up in a conversation, or they might find out that I like boys. So I was real reluctant on making friends when I was growing up. He said, but one thing I'll tell you is why I targeted or went after young boys. They had no hair on their chest. They were clean. No hair on their back. That's why I got them young. That's the only reason, because of how my father sweated all over me for many years. After the news media released the details of the arrest of Frederick Ritchie, and his child was thoroughly processed by the authorities, and the child was eventually placed in foster care, I got a call one night while I was working another job in the city. Frederick Ritchie's trailer was on fire, mysteriously. I went to the scene to check it out. I observed the firemen there. They were shooting some water onto some of the surrounding trailers next to and near the Ritchie trailer, but not much effort was being made to put Ritchie's trailer fire out. It was probably too far gone at that point. I remember neighbors piled outside watching the fire. I remember hearing the crackling and seeing the black particles of ash and whatnot floating up into the air, rising in the flames. And I saw the ashes left on the ground piled atop a concrete slab. There was no more trailer number 26. It was gone, and hopefully it will be erased from the memory of the people who had to continue to live there. That trailer was fully engulfed when I first saw it, when I first got there. But then, as I stood there and watched, along with the neighbors in the area, we watched it get reduced to a pile of black ash, which scored the concrete slab beneath it. As to little Johnny P., well, like his father before him, he had always dreamed of becoming a fireman. Everyone that knew him would mention that. Johnny always talked about becoming a fireman. He loved it when the fire trucks would roll by and he would stop whatever he was doing and stand there and look at the fire trucks. Well, that same local fire department, they decided to make little Johnny an honorary fireman once he was finally released from the hospital. His injuries took a long time for him to recover. They were painful and arduous, but eventually, when he got out, a parade was waiting for him as they perched him atop a big red Camden City Fire Department hook and ladder with his family. They paraded him up and down the streets and in and out and around the trailer park as well. That was a happy ending for a 7-year-old boy who survived the death grip of a true monster. The end. I'm Detective Gavel, Sergeant First Class, retired from the Homicide Division of the Camden County Prosecutor's Office. I spent 28 years in law enforcement and the next 20 years as a private detective specializing in unsolved murder cases. I was in homicide for 11 solid years, my last 11 years of my 28-year police career. During those 11 years, I handled approximately 60 cases that I would describe as very tough whodunits. I only had one case that was considered a smoking gun, but in fact it was not a smoking gun. It was a dripping knife that I'll tell you about another time.